All right, Proverbs El Cuatro, Proverbs 4. Let's jump right in. Proverbs 4 brings us another series of these father-son discourses to the tune of actually three. There's three such discourses within Proverbs 4. The first of these discourses can be found in verses 1 through 9, and it starts out the same way the other ones do. It's an appeal from the father to the son to listen to my words, to pay attention to what I'm saying here. And the father actually, to emphasize this, he appeals to tradition. And we see this in verse 3 when he says, when I was a son with my father, which is essentially a way of queuing up the, well, my father once told me, which is exactly what this is, because he tells his son what his father once told him in verses 4 through 9. And what this does is this emphasizes really the importance and the value of wisdom. And we should value it so much that we want to impart it to the next generation, because we want them to value wisdom, and then we want them to impart it to the next generation, and and we want it to keep going on and on and on and on. And it's interesting in the grandfather's wisdom to the father here. It talks about, again, it's referring to wisdom with these female pronouns, she and her. Again, this is a reference to Lady Wisdom. Remember, that's the personification of wisdom, where you've got Lady Wisdom kind of roaming around, looking for people to impart this wisdom to. And again, we're going to keep seeing that as well. The next discourse is in verses 10 through 19, and this discourse talks a lot about paths. And paths are another area that Proverbs is going to reference a lot. And it's kind of this theology of paths, if you will. You've got, kind of the right path, and you've got the wrong path. And obviously the father wants his son to be on the right path, and not only get on the right path, but to stay on the right path and to maintain course on the right path. You've inevitably heard people talking about, probably the straight and narrow. It's the same idea here. It's getting on that path, that straight and narrow path, which isn't promised to be an easy path by any means. But it's the smart path, and it's the right path here. And so that really brings us to the third discourse, which we find in verses 20 through 27. And here the father, is telling his son to, hey, protect yourself, right? To guard your heart. And we see in verse 23, it says, keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. And kind of the image here is, everyone has this spring of life flowing from them, and you want this spring to be clean, pure, to be refreshing water, so that when people are around you, you're a refreshment to them. You're fun to be around. They want to be around you because you're hopeful and you're encouraging. Now contrast that with, rather not the spring of life, but like the spring of death. And you've been around that person, and you're like, I can't wait to get away from this person. Because their spring isn't pure, refreshing, nice, cool water. Their stream it's muddy water, it's polluted, it's got a rusty shovel at the bottom of it. You don't want to be like that. You want to be, again, pure, you want to be fresh. And that's what the father's trying to impart to the son. And to kind of give him some pointers of how he can do this, in verse 24 it says, put away from you crooked speech, and put devious talk far from you. Like that, like all that, the gossip and this crooked speech. Like, no, avoid that. Don't take part in that. If anybody is talking like that, just get away from that kind of stuff. And in 25 he says, let your eyes look directly forward, and your gaze be straight before you. And so he's saying, hey, keep your eyes on the prize. There's a lot of other stuff it's gonna try to drag you down. It's gonna try to pull you down in there with it. He says, no. Keep your eyes forward. Keep your gaze forward. Don't get fixated on all this other stuff, all this negativity. And then he closes out by saying in verse 26, ponder the path of your feet, then all your ways will be sure. Do not swerve to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. Proverbs 4. I hope you enjoyed it.